Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, sundials, clocks, watches, and timekeeping devices of every stripe. Welcome. I'm Stephen with a V. What time zone are you in? How many time zones are there? So many younger people struggle to read analog clocks because they have grown up almost their entire lives with digital displays. Phones, computers, and smart devices present time as numbers, removing the need to interpret clock faces, hand positions, or elapsed time. As a result, skills like estimating minutes, understanding quarters and halves of an hour, and visualizing time passing are often underdeveloped. And forget about clockwise versus counterclockwise. The gap is not a failure of intelligence, but of exposure and instruction. However, the inability to read an analog clock reflects a loss of foundational literacy, where convenience replaces understanding, and can create problems in classrooms, workplaces, and time-critical environments where analog clocks are still common. When I was in the Air Force, I served as a firefighter. Like many jobs in emergency services, much of the work involves preparation, training, and routine until suddenly it doesn't. At one point in my service, I was assigned as a dispatcher for the fire department. That role carried a responsibility that many people underestimate, maintaining the official minute-by-minute log of everything the fire department did. Every call, every unit response, every clearance, and every interaction with every other agency had to be recorded accurately and in real time. The dispatcher's desk could become overwhelming very quickly. Multiple units might be responding simultaneously while dispatchers were communicating with base law enforcement, medical services, base operations, and sometimes the control tower managing aircraft both on the ground and in the air. Each of those agencies relied on precise timing. Seconds mattered. No opportunity was given to catch up later. Everything had to be written down as it happened. To make sure I got it right, I actually wrote things down 3 times. The first time was in grease pencil on the plexiglass desk, then a rough log on legal pad, and finally the official version in the logbook itself. Emergency activity in red ink, everything else in black. Although the training was required, many firefighters struggled with it when they did train for the position, which was seldom actually. Some were intimidated by the bank of direct phone lines, each ringing with urgency to a different agency. Others found the multitasking overwhelming. But the biggest obstacle, oddly enough, wasn't the phones or the pressure, it was the clock. They used a 24-hour Marine clock. It didn't look like a normal clock, and it didn't behave like a normal clock. It had a winding key that wound up to spring to keep it running. And its face was a 24-hour face, which is unfamiliar to just about everybody. Once around every day, not twice around. Very few firefighters could read it quickly, let alone confidently, which made accurate logging difficult. For reasons I fully can't understand still, it just clicked for me. The logic was simple. If the time was over 12, subtract 12. That was it. 1,500 hours minus 12 became 3 o'clock. 1,800 hours became 6 o'clock. I learned it quickly, and once I understood that, the mystery disappeared. What seemed intimidating was really just basic arithmetic with consistency. That experience stuck with me because today there are people who cannot read an analog clock at all. Many have grown up with nothing but digital displays, phones, dashboards, screens everywhere. They were never taught another way, and in most cases it isn't their fault. But the loss of that skill represents something larger, a growing disconnect from how time itself is measured, standardized, and shared. The 24-hour clock traces its roots to scientific notation and the need for clarity. Unlike 12-hour time, which requires AM and PM to avoid confusion, eliminates ambiguity altogether. There's only one 1800. There's only one 0600. There's no question whether it is morning or evening. In environments like aviation, medicine, emergency response, and the military, that clarity is essential. This system is closely tied to Greenwich Mean Time, or GMT, which originated at the Royal Observatory in Greenwich, England in the late 19th century, when the world needed a common reference point for time. As railroads expanded and global navigation increased, local solar time, where noon was wherever the sun was overhead, became impractical. Schedules didn't align, navigation calculations became unreliable, and international coordination suffered. Greenwich was chosen as a primary meridian in 1894, establishing 0 degrees longitude and a universal baseline for timekeeping. By referencing events in GMT, scientists, navigators, and governments could synchronize clocks worldwide. If an astronomical event, military operation, or international broadcast occurred at a given GMT time, everyone could calculate exactly when it would happen locally. That same principle applies in everyday life. Even now, aviation still uses GMT, often called Zulu time, to coordinate flights across time zones. Weather forecasts, satellite operations, global finance markets, and emergency communications all rely on standardized time references. Even modern technologies like GPS depend on precise shared timekeeping to function accurately. Understanding GMT and the 24-hour clock fosters more than technical competence. It builds situational awareness. It teaches people to think beyond their immediate location and to understand how their actions fit into a larger system. In my case, it allowed me to remain calm in a chaotic environment, knowing exactly when events occurred and how to continue communicating that information clearly to others. The Marine clock on that dispatcher's desk wasn't just a tool, it was a lesson. Time is not subjective in emergencies. It is recorded, shared, and relied upon. Losing the ability to read an analog clock or understand standardized time zones doesn't make life less convenient. It erodes precision, confidence, and readiness. GMT exists so that when something matters, whether it's the aircraft landing, a rescue response, or a historical record, everyone knows exactly when it happens, no matter where they are. But now, once again, it's meme 15. A wall built from hemp was blasted with 1700 degrees Fahrenheit for a full hour in a formal test. The other side of the wall didn't even get warm. This carbon-negative building material doesn't burn, it smolders, offering a new way to build truly fire-resistant homes. We are all born atheists until someone starts telling us lies. The price good men pay for indifference to public affairs is to be ruled by evil men. Andrew Carnegie spent 90% of his fortune building over 3,000 libraries, believing others deserved the same chance to a free library that was once given to him. You meet saints everywhere. They can be anywhere. There are people behaving decently in an indecent society. Kurt Vonnegut. In New Zealand, animals have been officially recognized as sentient beings. All animal testing for cosmetics has been legally banned. So until the next time, I am Stephen with a V. Hang an old-fashioned clock in your house and show off your new analog skills. I'll see you on the next turn. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Just please send a buck or two in my direction just to keep the channel going.